The top 5 worst plane crashes. Do you ever wonder how some of the most catastrophic events in aviation history unfolded? We're now going to focus on the top 5 worst plane crashes in history, incidents that not only shook the skies but also the hearts of millions globally. We'll reveal the causes, the heartbreaking losses, and the lessons learned from these devastating moments in aviation history. Number 5. Turkish Airlines, Flight 981. On March 3, 1974, a catastrophic failure sealed the fate of Turkish Airlines Flight 981, making it one of the darkest days in aviation history. Departing from Orly Airport in Paris towards London, the DC-10 aircraft, packed with 346 souls due to a strike redirecting travelers, faced a sudden and devastating mechanical failure shortly after takeoff. An improperly secured cargo door burst open due to the differential in air pressure, triggering explosive decompression. This catastrophic event caused the cabin floor to collapse, severing the control cables beneath. The aircraft, now uncontrollable, plunged into the Ermenonville forest at high speed, disintegrating upon impact and leaving no survivors. The tragedy of Flight 981 was rooted in a fundamental design flaw of the DC-10's cargo door. The door's latch mechanism was susceptible to being forced closed even if not properly secured. This flaw had been identified previously and was implicated in a similar incident involving American Airlines Flight 96. Despite the known risks and a prior near disaster, modifications to strengthen the latch mechanism were inadequately implemented on the ill-fated aircraft. The oversight proved fatal when, during Flight 981, the cargo door failed, leading to the aircraft's rapid decompression and subsequent crash. The design was intended to maximize cargo space, but instead introduced a deadly vulnerability. The aftermath of the crash not only led to sorrow, but also instigated critical changes in aviation safety protocols and design standards. Investigations revealed that warnings about the potential for such a disaster had been overlooked by the aircraft's manufacturer and operators. The disaster highlighted the need for more rigorous safety checks and better adherence to maintenance procedures. Subsequent redesigns of the cargo door, locking mechanisms, and enhancements in regulatory oversight aim to prevent such tragedies. Yet, the loss of Flight 981 remains a poignant reminder of the consequences of oversight in aircraft safety and design, underscoring the continuous need for vigilance in aviation engineering and safety standards. Number 4. Charkhi-Dadri mid-air collision. On November 12, 1996, the skies over Charkhi-Dadri, Haryana, India, witnessed the most catastrophic mid-air collision in aviation history, involving Saudia Flight 763 and Kazakhstan Airlines Flight 1907. The tragic encounter resulted in the loss of all 349 lives aboard both aircraft. Saudia Flight 763, a Boeing 747, was en route from Delhi to Dhahran carrying 312 individuals, while the Kazakhstan Airlines Ilyushin I-76 was descending towards Delhi with 37 passengers. The collision was attributed primarily to the failure of the Kazakh crew to maintain their assigned altitude, combined with severe communication barriers due to language differences and reliance on a single radio operator for critical interactions with air traffic control. The fateful incident unfolded as both planes, heading in opposite directions, converged over the same air corridor due to overlapping ascent and descent paths mandated by air traffic control. Despite clear instructions, the I-76 descended below its cleared level, placing it directly in the path of the ascending Boeing 747. The failure to maintain altitude, coupled with inadequate communication, set the stage for the inevitable. The left wing of the I-76 intersected with the Saudia jet, causing catastrophic damage to both aircraft and leaving no chance for survival. This mid-air tragedy starkly highlighted the critical need for robust communication and precise adherence to air traffic controls. In response to this disaster, significant changes were mandated globally, focusing on enhancing communication standards and collision avoidance technologies. The implementation of mandatory collision avoidance systems in aircraft and the restructuring of air traffic management around congested areas like New Delhi were direct outcomes aimed at preventing such tragedies. The Charkhi-Dadri collision remains a somber reminder of the potential human cost of lapses in aviation safety and the continuous need for vigilance and improvement in air traffic control and safety protocols. Number 3. The Tenerife disaster. On March 27, 1977, an unprecedented disaster unfolded at Los Rodeos Airport, now Tenerife North Airport, on the Spanish island of Tenerife, when two Boeing 747 jumbo jets collided on the runway, claiming 583 lives. This tragic incident, involving KLM Flight 4805 and Pan Am Flight 1736, remains the deadliest accident in aviation history. The disaster was precipitated by a series of miscommunications and unfortunate circumstances, including severe fog that severely limited visibility. The KLM flight, attempting to take off, collided with the Pan Am aircraft that was taxiing on the same runway. Earlier that day, both flights had been diverted to Tenerife from Gran Canaria Airport due to a terrorist bombing. The airport quickly became congested, complicating the management of ground traffic. Both aircraft were instructed to back-taxi on the same runway due to the lack of available taxiways, exacerbated by the poor visibility from the fog. The collision occurred when the KLM captain initiated takeoff without clearance, mistakenly believing they had the go-ahead, while the Pan Am was still on the runway. The immediate aftermath was catastrophic. The KLM jet lifted off too late, clipping the Pan Am plane, leading to a massive explosion fueled by the fully loaded KLM's fuel tanks. Survivors from the Pan Am flight were mostly those located in the front section of the plane, who managed to escape before fire engulfed the aircraft. All aboard the KLM flight perished when it crashed seconds later, unable to gain sufficient altitude. The Tenerife disaster prompted a complete overhaul of international aviation safety protocols, especially in communication. The crash highlighted the critical need for standardized communication phrases and procedures to prevent misunderstandings. Furthermore, it led to the implementation of the Crew Resource Management (CRM) programs that mandated the inclusion of the entire cockpit crew in decision-making processes, ensuring that the captain is no longer the sole authority during flights, which has significantly improved safety in the skies. Number 2. Japan Airlines Flight 123. On August 12, 1985, Japan Airlines Flight 123 met with catastrophic disaster, marking the worst single aircraft accident in aviation history. The Boeing 747, en route from Tokyo's Haneda Airport to Osaka International Airport, was carrying 524 souls when it suffered a critical mechanical failure. 12 minutes into the flight, the aircraft experienced explosive decompression due to an improperly repaired aft pressure bulkhead. This severe damage compromised the plane's hydraulic systems and significantly impacted its structural integrity, including the loss of most of the vertical stabilizer, rendering the aircraft uncontrollable. Despite the dire circumstances, the flight crew managed to keep the aircraft airborne for an agonizing 32 minutes following the decompression. This window allowed passengers to comprehend their looming fate, with some managing to pen heartfelt farewell notes to their loved ones. The pilots struggled valiantly to regain control, but ultimately, the crippled plane succumbed to gravity, crashing into Mount Takamagahara. The impact was devastating, and the remote location further complicated rescue efforts. In the aftershock, only 4 of the 509 passengers survived, found amidst the wreckage that littered the forested mountain slopes. The delay in rescue operations proved fatal for many who initially survived the crash but could not receive timely medical assistance. This tragic event not only highlighted critical oversights in aircraft maintenance and repair, but also underscored the profound human cost of such oversights, as hundreds of families were left to mourn their irreplaceable losses. Number 1. 9/11. Attacks? On September 11, 2001, a series of horrific terrorist attacks orchestrated by the extremist group Al-Qaeda profoundly shocked the world and changed the course of global events. Early that morning, 19 hijackers took control of 4 commercial airplanes in a coordinated plot. Two of these planes, American Airlines Flight 11 and United Airlines Flight 175, were flown into the north and south towers of the World Trade Center in New York City, causing both towers to eventually collapse. Another plane, American Airlines Flight 77, was crashed into the Pentagon, the headquarters of the United States Department of Defense, causing significant damage and casualties. The fourth plane, United Airlines Flight 93, crashed into a field in Pennsylvania after passengers heroically intervened to retake control from the hijackers, preventing it from reaching its intended target in Washington, D.C. The attacks began with the hijacking of the planes that had departed from airports on the U.S. East Coast bound for California, loaded with fuel for the long flights. At 8:46 a.m., Flight 11 struck the North Tower, followed by Flight 175, hitting the South Tower at 9:03 a.m. This sequence of impacts, caught live on television, made it clear that America was under attack, prompting widespread horror and disbelief. At 9:37 a.m., Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon, and at 10:03 a.m., Flight 93 met its tragic end in Pennsylvania. These attacks not only resulted in the tragic loss of nearly 3,000 lives, but also caused widespread destruction and a profound sense of vulnerability throughout the United States and the world. The result of the attacks ushered in a new era of global counter-terrorism efforts, including the US-led invasion of Afghanistan to dismantle al-Qaeda and remove the Taliban from power. Domestically, it led to major changes in U.S. policies and security measures, such as the establishment of the Department of Homeland Security and the passage of the USA Patriot Act. The events of 9/11 have left an indelible mark on the psyche of the American people and continue to influence international relations and security policies 2 decades later. Well, folks, that's it for today. Thank you all for watching. Do not forget to subscribe and see you in the next one.